This video covers guild updates starting in Gnome patch and lasting until Ela patch. Ela patch has some major changes that I'll cover in another video when the time comes. 15 seconds switching buff has been removed. Stuff like lightning strikes, bombs, freezes, mines and such are gone. Bosses always have 30 HP bars and dead zone enemies have 5 HP bars, but they do get tankier the further you get. Respawn enemies have iframes and the duration gets increased every respawn. This also means it's no longer possible to do double damage kills. With one exception that I'll mention later in the video. In that zone, you can use counters and executions. Trial characters have these abilities unlocked. New characters will always appear in guild during the patch and they won't take up a pick slot. Basically, if it's a new A rank or S rank character, then A rank or S rank stage will have 6 units to choose from, always including the new character. If it is a new uniframe character, then you'll have the option to select from 4 units. A-rank zone still has the same bosses, which are Wasago, Roseblade and Kamu. S-rank zone added new bosses such as Lamia, Cute Shark and Evil Shark. That zone has enemies such as Hanged Man, Guardians and Sanctuary Guards. 2 patches later, they will get replaced by Ronins and Excavators. There are 2 combat styles which are required for you to select before attempting guild battles. Single, which focuses on solo play while giving buffs when using QTEs, and multi that focuses on switching as much as possible to get buffs. To select a combat style, there will be a button at the bottom right corner. You will be required to pick 3 skills. Also, if you want to switch between styles, there is a 5-minute cooldown after selecting one. Keep in mind, the final translations are likely to be different and global. Default skill is always locked in. When a QTE is trigger another character's QTE. Basically this is a stronger Da Vinci effect, but you don't need to run Da Vinci. And before you ask, yes, they do not stack. Every 1 million damage QTE cooldowns are reset if the characters are not on the field. One thing to note that there is no limit for 1 million damage bonus, unlike in old guild where orb bonus lasted until 20 million damage. If you switch out and use the switched out character's QTE, then it won't activate the Aura QTE, but if you use the Aura QTE when it comes up, then it will activate the Aura QTE. You won't be dodging that much to trigger Matrix or even trigger Matrix at all. Enemies will just die before they can do anything if you're playing on anything besides trial characters. And even on trial characters, the only bosses you'll be triggering Matrix off would be both of the sharks. There are better options to select from. While the skill is active and you use QTs again during that duration, the skill's effect won't refresh its duration. On the other hand, if you use QTs and switch the character out, then that character will still gain orbs even off field. You can also gain orbs during time stop. If you trigger both QTs, then this skill will trigger twice. These triggers can crit if you use basic attack. Special basic attacks like Scire's uppercut, spin, or Garnet's free pink follow-up basic attack will deal elemental damage instead. This skill increases stage time by 40 seconds. Alpha Mark activates once you QTE 6 times to trigger an explosion that does 30% of the target's HP as damage. It does pierce, meaning during this tiny window you can actually do double damage kills, but it's quite difficult to line up such a scenario. Also, this only works until 20 million damage threshold because the enemy respawn iframe duration is already around 1 second here. This also includes the pierce part. You can also switch between characters to maximize QTE usage. Beta Mark is very easy to trigger and has effects depending on your team. Same class effect activates only if your whole team is made of the same class. Best example I can give you would be Dead Zone, since all the characters there are vanguards. 1500 damage increase for normal attack triggers once during Mark's duration. Using QTs again during Beta's Mark duration does not reset 1500 damage increase trigger, same thing with Gain Orb 1. You can't trigger both effects. Now let's talk about multi-skills. Default skill on multi resets characters which cooldown every time you reach 1 million damage threshold. If the characters are on the field when you reach the threshold, then the switch cooldowns do not get reset. Best way to avoid this would be to use QTs after you reach 1 million damage threshold. With switch cooldown resets, you basically can keep the enemy matrix locked. Each character has to switch 5 times to max out the stacks of the skill. With switch cooldown resets, this shouldn't take too long. This skill might seem appealing because of free orbs, but you definitely won't be needing that many orbs when there are better options to choose from. This skill is really strong if you switch a lot. To trigger it, you need to land your switch-in attack on the enemy. 1200% AoE damage is based off your character's attack stat, so the more attack buffs you stack up, the more damage the skill will do. Just like single, multi has its own 40-second stage time increase. For Alpha Mark, all you need to do is switch 4 times to trigger it, which is really simple with the character cooldown reset. 50% attack increase and you gain free orbs every 1 second for 20 seconds. As long as you switch 4 times every 20 seconds, this buff stays up for the whole battle. Beta Mark is best used when all character classes are different. Basically it's totally useless in that zone. Every time you switch, you'll deal 1000% attack damage. This obviously does scale with your character's attack stat. After you trigger this twice, the third switch in attack will trigger an explosion that will bypass enemy spawn iframes, meaning that it will deal the rest of the damage to a respawn boss. Of course, this only works up to 20 million damage threshold. This skill synergizes extremely well with 1200% AoE damage skill. Your main damage source basically becomes your switch-in attacks, which you'll be doing a lot. This means that the boss will always be matrix locked, so they will stay in one place except for one, that is Evil Shark. We are done reviewing every skill. Now I'll recommend most viable skill combinations for each combat style. This is the most used single setup. I also like to call it the explosion setup since the main gameplay goal is to proc Alpha Mark as much as possible while still trying to time your burst with your QTEs. This setup is very rarely used, mostly used when doing solo Scire, and that is assuming you have your own built one. In the future, Crimson Weave can benefit from this skill combination. Most use multi-setup for your own constructs. Just like I mentioned in multi-Alpha Mark review, all you have to do is to switch 4 times minimum every 20 seconds to keep the skill running. This setup is only used with trial characters when you can benefit from the multi-beta mark. This also requires you to switch a lot more often to benefit from the switch-in attack procs. Multi-beta mark is only used with trial characters and in A rank zone. With this setup, even with weak units, you can do decent amount of damage, because your switch-in attacks become your main source of damage. This is also the hardest setup to play correctly. The idea behind this is you have a main DPS unit, a sub DPS unit, and a switcher. Main DPS unit will do most of the damage, then you switch to your switcher, and after that to sub DPS to proc 1 million damage threshold. Then you switch back to your switcher and then to main DPS and keep on looping afterwards. Now obviously there will be situations where you have to adjust your rotation differently depending on your situation, but yeah, this is the most complex rotation to explain properly. So which combat style is the best one? It's hard to say, but multi is definitely stronger than single for now. Though there will be situations where single might be better than multi. I would recommend you to test out those setups and see which one works out the best for you. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, in that zone you can use counters and executions. I don't recommend using executions for the first 2 patches for a few reasons. We are doing way more health damage than execution meter damage. This does get properly adjusted later. With new aggressive enemies, when we execute them during mid animation, the respawn ones will right away aggro you. You rather battle enemies in their spawn location. Rodents and excavators don't do that unless you hit them. Some execution animations take too long. Counters are really slow too, but the enemies should never get the chance to attack you since you will be abusing multi-switching. You definitely want the enemies here to be matrix locked. After those 2 patches, executions will become a viable option. And this concludes everything I wanted to say about the new guild update. Personally, I find the new guild update really fun to play, but at the same time I do dislike some things, like I definitely do miss double damage kills. I definitely do find the iframes for respawning bosses really annoying. Like at 90 million damage, iframes go up to 4 seconds, which is really ridiculous, but I do understand why they exist. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.